On this episode of the Sacred Playgrounds podcast, it is our season 4 finale. And we decided we're going to have some fun. We're going to play a classic camp game, Two Truths and a Lie, the Sacred Playgrounds way. Welcome to the Sacred Playgrounds podcast, where we turn numbers into stories and data into insights. We dive deep into theology and research, paired with practical wisdom and action steps to help camping ministries thrive. I'm your host and producer, Jared Rendell, a camp enthusiast and part of the Sacred Playgrounds team. This podcast features Dr. Jake Sorensen, a scholar, author, practitioner, and the founder of Sacred Playgrounds. Be sure to subscribe, submit a question to us to be featured on the podcast, and click that support button to help make these episodes happen. Find us on Facebook and Instagram at Sacred Playgrounds or at sacredplaygrounds.com. Wonder with us what God might have in store at your sacred playground. Hey, welcome to the playground, everyone. Here we are, Jake, already. In some ways, it feels like already the season 4 finale.
Yeah, time flies. You know, especially as the weather gets nicer and spring springs and like then May comes and here's summer and it's just upon us. So I agree. It's in a lot of ways it's really flown by.
Yeah, sure has. Speaking of flown by,
I
I don't know if you meant to transition that segue, but I know the thing that people are most curious about right now is your bird count.
I mean, it's likely the only thing that is keeping them listening.
They're shutting it off right after this. Okay, what's your bird count? Tell us some highlights of your experience here with your bird friends.
I've had some great success, especially as I was traveling around to different camps this spring because it was migration season and I got to go to different parts of the country. I was down in Kansas and Oklahoma and Texas, and I was over in New York State. So my bird count is at, you ready? Drum roll. My bird count is at 85 so far. And here we are. It's only May.
85.
Yeah. So remember I said I was hoping to get to 100, because I didn't know how into it I would get, things like that.
You're getting there.
It's at 85. And I will say, when I've been at these camps, like I've tried to go for a walk or something, but like it's not like I have a bunch of time and like great binoculars or something to identify these birds.
You tend to pack it in.
But I will say that this Merlin bird app is really good at identifying bird calls. So sometimes I'll see a bird way up in a tree or something, and it'll identify the call, and then I can confirm it. And so that's been really fun.
Wow.
So you just push play, and it listens to the birds around you, and it says what it thinks it hears. And that's been pretty cool. My two most recent were here in Wisconsin. I was driving like 2 days ago, and a Baltimore Oriole flew right across the road.
Nice.
And they're so distinctive with the bright orange and the black that it was obviously an Oriole.
It's super dark.
So that was
black.
my first Oriole of the season. And then I saw my first ruby-throated hummingbird just yesterday. And so it's fun to see them back. They'll be around all summer here in the upper Midwest. So that's always fun.
Good work. You got lots of time to get your last 15. And like we know we got some fun places to go, right? We got staff training. We'll talk about this at the end again, but we've got some staff training stuff we're going to go coming up. We've got some fall conferences and things like that, big ones this year especially. And so you're going to knock that 100 out of the park.
I don't want to get cocky. That's the thing. Like because it would be really sad to get to December and be like, I'm at 98,
Jake's got to plan a, in quotes, work trip to go. All right.
That's what real birders do, right? They plan their vacations around birding.
That's right. That's when we'll know you're all the way in the deep end there, buddy. I love it. So we're going to dive in. We have a game to play today. You likely have, lots of you have played this before as often get to know you game, in either friends or maybe at staff training or maybe even with campers. But we're going to play Two Truths and a Lie. And we're going to do that from a handful of perspectives. Yeah. Have you played this? Did you do this as like a get to know you game?
Have I played
lots
this?
Of times?
So,
I mean, how many times?
With a caveat. I don't play it as
Two
truths and a lie.
Sure.
I play it as two truths and a make-believe because we're not trying to lie. We're trying to make up a story, and making up stories and having different ideas and a narrative. That's an okay thing. When we're lying and trying to deceive somebody, that's a little different. And that's not what we're trying to do with the game. We're trying to play a fun game about what's one of these things that I'm imagining about myself or about the world. And so I like to
I like it.
reword it that way. And I
Like
think
to
it helps
reword it a
kids
little bit.
understand too, because they're told that they're not supposed to lie. And that's a good thing to teach them. And so we don't want them to be confused because of a camp game. So anyway, yes, I have played it.
Makes sense. Yes. Yeah. As have we all, I'm sure. All right. So we're going to dive in. You are going to hear, we're going to play 4 rounds of this. And these 4 rounds are going to be from 4 perspectives. We are going to share, and you are going to have to lock in your answers however you want to lock those in. Maybe it's a comment because you're like listening on somewhere online where you can make a comment, or you can just lock it in yourself in your own brain or write it down. And you can let us know how you did. If you
keep score. Keep score.
Keep
This
score.
is important.
This is what matters. And so we'll see if you can
This
find
is what
the
matters.
untrue statements amidst the true statements. Advantage, if we're honest, by the way, advantage to those who have listened to, who've listened to the podcast for a while, if we're just going to call it honestly, because you'll hear some things that sound familiar. And we'll, of course, use some stories and some stats to kind of lay foundation around those things. So we've got 4 rounds: camper perspective, parent perspective, camp director perspective, and summer staff perspective. So we'll do round by round.
I love it. I love it.
It's going to be
Jared,
fun.
it's your game. You said, let's play a game. It's the last episode of the season. I want to play a game. So why don't you start?
I will start us off. Before we dive in quickly, our stat of the week this week.
Stat of the week. Stat of the week. Stat of the week.
Our stat of the week this week is all the stats of the week, because we just mostly want to remind. It's all of them. It's just a reminder, right? We'll share a handful of stats today, and a lot of them we've actually talked about before. Mostly for this stat of the week, we want to remind you that you can use all these, that you have access to all of these. Playgrounds.com/research, the top section. We've got 3 big sections on that page. And the top section are these quick stats that we pull most completely. I mean, we add some in there, but most completely from our stats of the week from this podcast. So you can go download all the old ones and use those this summer. Use them, and then you tie an action to them is the idea. You tie sign up for camp action, make sure you are on our communications list action, whatever it is. And they're from some of these different perspectives. So that's our stats, plural, of the week this week. Okay, here we go. Game time. 2 truths and an untruth. We're going to start with our camper perspectives. So here are our 3 statements from our camper's perspective.
1.
Increased camper agency. Agency means the say that they feel like they have in their camp experience. Increased camper agency leads to growth in self-confidence. Increased camper agency leads to growth in self-confidence. That's number 1.
2.
The majority of campers regard camp as transformative or life-changing. The majority of campers regard camp as transformative or life-changing.
3.
Campers' top 3 reasons for attending camp are fun, faith, and friends, in that order. Top 3 reasons for attending camp are fun, faith, and friends, in that order. Those are your 3 statements. We're going to give you a very, very short time to lock in your answers. Decide which of those statements you think is untrue. Which of those statements did we make up?
And what's it going to be, ladies and gentlemen? Is it camper agency? Is it the top 3 reasons for attending camp? Or is it in camp as transformative or life-changing? Lock in your answer.
Lock in your answer. That's a great game show guy voice,
right? Should I be a game
right?
show host? Yeah.
You probably should. All right, the untrue statement is statement number 2. The majority of campers regard camp as transformative or life-changing. So we'll break these down just quick. Let's talk about that untrue statement for a second. There are campers, of course, who have these transformative experiences. Some of you are probably listening right now. Part of why you're there in your role as a leader or a summer staff member, or maybe even a parent or whoever else might be listening, is because you had a transformative experience of camp. That is sure what things were like for me, right? We've unpacked that before. This was life-changing for me. Camp was life-changing for me. Clearly couldn't get away. The truth is that it's not the majority of campers that describe camp as transformative or life-changing. And what I always thought was interesting, Jake, that you've talked about is that's true from the parent perspective as well. They don't want or expect their kids to come back as completely different people. And we know that they want their kids to be safe. We want their kids to have fun. They're not expecting transformation necessarily. So that was our untrue statement.
Yeah, it's interesting with that one, because like 97% said they have fun. We can measure growth in about 3/4 of them. And, it's over a quarter of parents say there was significant changes that I saw in my kid, And then it's somewhere around 5%, 5 to 10% that identify it as this was a transformative or a life-changing experience. So it's still a substantial number, but sometimes we overpromise these things when not everybody's looking for that level of change. But it does often happen. So we shouldn't be surprised when it happens, but we also shouldn't be trying to manipulate it or move towards that particular thing, right? That's Holy Spirit territory.
Right. Or necessarily focus on it in our marketing, right? When we're marketing the parents.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
Yeah, so it's interesting, but we do it. We so many like, oh, come to this life-changing experience.
Right.
Focus on those things that they want. Match their desires, perspectives. Those other two statements: increased camper agency leads to growth and self-confidence. We know that to be true. That was one of our stats of the week. You can go download that one. We know that campers who said they had often or always felt like they had a say in their camp experience were more than twice as likely to show measured growth and self-confidence. You can go hit download.
Yeah,
on
that was
one
a big finding from just this past summer. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and same. You can also download the one that just lays out campers' top 3 reasons for attending camp. They want to have fun. They do. A lot of people expect, friends to kind of be that next thing. They're there for faith experiences and purpose, which was good to find out. So those are our 3. Fun, by the way, was at 92%, faith at 81%, friends at 72% in terms of their reasons for attending camp. There's our camper's perspective.
Awesome.
How did you do, everybody?
How did you do? Yeah,
say it out loud, wherever you are, in your staff meeting, in your car, let folks know how you did. Oh, this is extra fun for the groups, because we know we have people who do this for staff meetings, or they come.
They could write it down.
Write it down. Let's see who wins. And we want to hear who on your staff wins. If you are one that has your staff, listen to this. We want to hear who wins. All right, Jake, your turn.
Parents.
Let's talk about parents.
3 statements about parents. 2 of these are true. One of them is make-believe. Here are your 3 statements.
1.
Strengthening character is the number 1 priority of camper parents in sending their children to camp. Strengthening character is the number 1 priority of parents in sending their children to camp.
2.
Increase conversations about God and faith in the home is the most consistent long-term impact of camp on family faith practices. Increase conversations about God and faith in the home is the most consistent long-term impact of camp on family faith practices.
3.
More than 90% of parents agree that it is clear that camp had an impact on their child. More than 90% of parents agree that it is clear that camp had an impact on their child. Go ahead and lock in your answer.
Answer. Lock them in, everybody. Write them down. Again, if you're competing with staff, with fellow staff members, lock in your answer.
All right,
Jake.
Those of us who listen to this podcast frequently know that the make-believe statement was the first statement. Strengthening character is not the number 1 priority of camper parents. We always talk about this as the 2 most important priorities of camper parents are safety and fun. If they come on the last day and they see that their child has a big smile on their face and they're safe, you didn't lose them in the woods or at the bottom of the lake, and they don't have their arm in a sling or a bandage on their forehead that they didn't know about, right?
All good things.
If their arm's in a sling, you better have called them that week and let them know exactly what happened. If they come, their child is safe and smiling, it's automatically an 8 on a scale of 1 to 10. Everything else is gravy. So strengthening character is something that they're hoping for, a lot of parents. So that's one of the top goals of camp. In fact, 95% of camper parents said this is a very or extremely important goal of camp. It's not that this is unimportant, right? It's just that it's subservient to the top 2 goals of safety and fun. We know that growth in faith is another one that parents often say is very or extremely important. We know that making friends or having new experiences, these are all important goals of camp from parents' perspective, but the top 2, again, are safety and fun. The increased conversations is a really interesting one, because that is a true statement. When we did this for Rhythms of Faith,
this is a big deal.
We asked camper parents 9 months after camp, a whole bunch of different family faith practices, Bible reading, prayer at mealtimes, church attendance, all these different pieces. It was over 1,000 respondents. The number 1 area of influence in terms of these family faith practices was the frequency of conversations about God and faith. Those were the ones that had increased following camp and had stayed higher 9 months after camp. And the parents identified camp as the point that this changed. And that's the key. They're looking back 9 months after camp and they're saying, camp influenced this piece of our family's life together. And one of the reasons that it's so important, we shared this as the stat of the week a couple weeks ago, is that this is the number 1 factor in faith retention. So the
Right,
number one
those
factor for faith
conversations.
retention is conversations about God and faith with parents. And so we learned this from all sorts of different other research projects, including the Christian Smith materials on passing on the faith. That's kind of one of the main impetuses of the Rhythms of Faith project. So super important. And then, of course, if you've listened to this at all or you talked with Jared, this is one of his favorite stats that more than 90% of parents agree with the statement, "It is clear that camp had an impact on my child." And again, this is so significant because we know that they're primarily there for safety and smiles. And so when it's over 90% consistently, we've done this study at more than 95 camps across the country and in Canada, and it's consistently over 90% of parents agree with that statement. That's your
Awesome.
2 truths and a make-believe from parents.
From parents. All right, let's keep going. Hopefully you're in a good place with your score right now. We're going to talk camp director perspectives now. We've got 3 statements connected to researcher on camp directors, what we've learned about camp directors, what you know about yourselves, camp directors. And so here are your 3 statements.
1.
Christian camp directors report higher revenue from fundraising and donations this past year in 2024 through 2024 than in the previous year. Christian camp directors reported higher revenue from fundraising and donations in 2024 than in the previous year.
2.
Among Christian camp directors, there has been a steady decline in prioritizing incorporating faith into all aspects of camp. So over time, over years, among Christian camp directors, there's been a steady decline in prioritizing incorporating faith into all aspects of camp.
3.
The number one priority on average for camp directors is fun for all participants. The number one priority on average for camp directors is fun for all participants. Lock in your answers. Statement number 1, statement number 2, statement number 3, and locked based on my official timer in my head. The make-believe statement was our last one, statement number 3. The number one priority on average camp directors is fun for all participants. Is it important? Yes, of course. Do they rate it high? Of course. They don't rate it beyond safety, though, right? And we've shared some of that before. Consistently, I guess we haven't mentioned it on this podcast, but we just dropped a new resource around the 5 fundamentals of effective camps. That is what we've been studying in effective camp projects, came out of the original study. And so we just dropped a new resource that lays all these out, including info and interactive worksheet pieces. So it's in our Sacred Playgrounds Camp store right now, and it's in there, and it talks about things like this idea of safety is in there, and it's one of the clear statements in the safety fundamental, right? It is the number one priority for camp directors is participant safety. It is also the thing that induces the most anxiety potentially in parents, like Jake was just mentioning. So the number one priority on average for camp directors is camper safety. Fun is there. Fun is high. And that connects then to some of the, well, go ahead, Jake.
Well, I was just going to say, I mean, fun is there and it's important, but it's below, not only below safety, it's below many other things that camp directors prioritize over fun for all participants. And that's been consistent. And so it has consistently remained below from camp directors' perspective in both mainline and in evangelical circles, below fellowship and community building, and then below character formation and formation of self-confidence, things like that. And so those 2 things, along with safety, are always rated higher than fun for all participants on average. What's also frequently rated higher, depending on how the list is and depending on who's responding, kind of from what theological background, but oftentimes facilitating participants' experiences of or encounters with God is higher than fun as well. And oftentimes individual faith formation is higher than fun. So those tend to fluctuate a little bit, but fun is kind of way down the list. So you sort of look at these other things that are between fun and safety, which we know are so important for parents. And it's like, okay, these are some of the core values: community building, character formation, faith formation.
Yeah. Yeah. And they connect with some of these other things. You were just mentioning the faith formation thing, because that being the untruth does say a couple things like the truth of this steady decline. We unpacked this a little bit a few weeks ago, but this steady decline in prioritizing incorporating faith into all aspects of camp. And so while camp directors are saying fun is 5th, 6th, maybe even lower sometimes down the list, faith experiences, even though we're talking Christian camps, are not always sitting even at the top 1 or 2. And what that means then in practice is we've got camps, and again, we unpack this some more, so listen back to that one, that are doing less of this incorporating. They're either compartmentalizing these faith pieces more, or they're simply talking about it less and making sure they check that box a little bit here and there. So there's been a steady decline according to the
There has.
research.
There has. And it's a concerning decline from my perspective, because we've identified the benefits of having faith integrated camps and how important that is for faith
Mhm.
formation and for other outcomes of camp as well. And remember that parents are looking for these things, and a lot of the campers are looking for these things. And so that's part of our core values and who we are. And so trying to keep those as central. The faith is at the center of what we do. It's not peripheral, it's not compartmentalized. And so to put this in perspective, at numbers wise, when we did the survey in 2016, it was nearly 90% of directors agreed with the statement faith formation should be incorporated into all aspects of family or of camp life. And that declined to 85% in 2020 and down to 76% just in the beginning of this year. And so it's kind of had that steady decline.
Yeah. And then just to put a bow on it, fundraising and donations been up. We shared that a few weeks ago, from this year over in this past year, 2024, over the couple of previous years. And so that's good overall. We know that there are, as we've said, there are dollars out there. And our opportunity to connect with those is something that's increasing and hopefully can and will continue to. Those are our camp director perspectives. Jake, we've got one more audience, lots of which are dropping on site, within the next 1 to 4 weeks or so for most camps. Your staff are coming, everybody.
For some of them. So this is these staff members are such an important part of what we do. And, we didn't include this in the camp director's perspectives, but, it's such a large majority of camp directors that agree with the statement, ministering with our summer camp staff is just as important as ministering with our campers. That's a important priority of what we do at camp. And so we know that you put these young people, these young adults, these emerging adults at the center of your mission and ministry. And thank you for that. So as we think of these folks, here's your 3 statements. Figure out which 2 are true and which one is the make-believe.
1.
The most consistent outcome of serving on summer camp staff is leadership development. The most consistent outcome of serving on summer camp staff is leadership development.
2.
Summer camp staff tend to have a higher regard for faith at camp than that of the Christian church in general. Summer camp staff tend to have a higher regard for faith at camp than that of the Christian church in general.
3.
A substantial minority of camp staff identify significant mental health concerns. A substantial minority of camp staff identify significant mental health concerns. Those are your 3 statements. Which one do you think is the make-believe? The one about outcome of leadership development? The one about higher regard for faith at camp? Or the one significant mental health concerns?
Lock him in. That's the sound of them locking it in.
That's
I made him a button finally for the sound.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you.
They're all locked in.
This is a tricky one.
Yeah, it is kind of, isn't it?
They all sound true, and it's actually a technicality on this sense, because I said a substantial minority of camp staff. It's actually a slight majority of camp staff identify significant mental health concerns. So number 3 was the make-believe. And this is an important one to remember, because some of these make-believes are what you hear in common parlance as people talk about camp, right? A lot of these statements people assume are true, and it's not a minority of camp staff. It's actually a majority of camp staff that we've worked with in both the Lutheran, Episcopal, and evangelical traditions identify some of these mental health concerns. Among them, and these are the markers: thoughts of self-harm in the past 6 months, having overwhelming anxiety more than monthly, feeling very down or hopeless more than monthly, and agreeing with the statement, I am oftentimes unhappy with my life and who I am. So having one or more of those, and remember, in some staffs, it's about a third of their staff have 3 or more of those, 3 or 4 of those markers. And the majority of your staff are likely to have at least one of those markers. And so we don't want to stigmatize mental health, right? We want to normalize conversations about it and asking for help and remembering that other people are struggling as well and providing those supports. And that's one of the things that we found from the Episcopal staff study last summer, is that when those supports are in place, these staff can have a remarkably successful and impactful summer. And so we really saw that with the Episcopal camp cohort that we surveyed the staff in the summer of 2024. And a slight majority of them had at least one of these mental health concerns, and they were no more likely than the ones with no mental health concerns to have a bad experience at camp or something like that. They had
Right.
those supports in place, right? And they identified that those supports were in place. And that was something that contrasted with other camps that we've studied. And so we've done a great job as a camping industry in identifying these challenges and addressing them. Keep doing it.
Mhm.
And remember to kind of normalize talking about it. That's an important thing. And this will help.
Mhm.
Remembering that it's actually a majority of camp staff, from a broad perspective. Of course, your camp might be half and half. It might be 40-60 one way or the other. But as we take camp staff in general, it's a majority. The other two statements, we know that the most consistent outcome of serving on summer camp staff is leadership development. That's one that it really doesn't
That's
matter
true.
what camp we study. We've done this with nearly 100 camps now, or over 100 camps. And that's the one that's most consistent, that the staff are identifying growth in leadership, but that they're also growing in their confidence in leadership. They're also growing in certain skills related to leadership. And so this is the most consistent outcome. Of course, we see other outcomes related to self-confidence and faith and some of these other pieces as well, but that's not at every single camp. Leadership development is the one that is the most consistent. And then the second one is, it was worded a little weird, I know. So summer camp staff, they tend to have this higher regard for faith at camp than in the Christian church in general. Some of these folks have actually been hurt by the Christian church and are finding sort of this new understanding of what Christianity can be, and what Christian community can be in the summer staff community. And some had fine and positive experiences at church and are having this deeper experience at camp. And so this presents a challenge, an opportunity and a challenge, right? It's an opportunity because we're connecting them to Christian community and helping them understand the importance of Christian community, showing them what true intentional Christian community looks like and feels like. The danger of that is that they can say, this is important, or this is vital, or Jesus is present here in some way that he's not present in these other places. So my home church, or the church in general, is not as authentic. And that's where we want to really be careful, because we want to help them connect to Christian community, help them improve Christian community. Maybe these other spaces aren't as idyllic as your summer camp staff community. We're not surprised about that, but we're hoping that this can be empowering and teach you how to interact in Christian community and how a true Christian community should function, so that you can go forth and impact the church and connect with the church at a local level, at a regional level, and as of course the capital C church worldwide. And so this is such an important part of what it means to be Christian. And we ask these questions in the summer staff surveys that we do, their regard, positive or negative, for the camp, for their denomination if they have one, and then for Christianity in general. And the regard for Christianity in general has been declining. And there's sort of this concern about organized Christianity and sometimes the church itself. And so sometimes we actually, depending on the community, sometimes we actually have summer staff leaving their staff experience with a lower regard for the church and with less of an intention of attending church when they get older. And that is very concerning. We want to flip that and help this be a place of engagement, a place of positive experiences, so that they go forth from our camp communities and connect to Christian community elsewhere. It cannot be a replacement for a church community.
Yeah, part of the power of the temporary community that camp is for campers, and especially, and staff too, part of the power of a temporary community, that, catalytic ability of a temporary space like this, like our friend Rob talks about, is that there is a permanent space. There's a juxtaposition between these temporary spaces and this permanent space, and that's part of why the temporary space is powerful, potentially. Yeah. Ooh, all right, my friend. We talked campers, parents, camp directors, staff, and we wanted to be nice and tight on this episode because you've got lots to do, camp folks. And so hopefully 2 truths and an untrue, a make-believe was fun for you. Gloat if you scored like a 3 or a 4 in terms of identifying the right ones, then you are an official Sacred Playgrounds camp stat nerd. I just dubbed that level right now.
Can you make a badge for that? Make a badge for that?
There should be a badge. There should be a badge.
Jared's going to make a badge for that and send us in. If you got 4 out of 4, then you can get the official badge. I'll send you the badge.
Absolutely. Yeah. I'll send you the digital badge. And if, we want to get that printed, you can put it on your backpack. Oh, I love it. All right. We're going to leave you with this. Here's our quick camp question for the week.
Quick camp question.
Quick camp question is this, Jake. What's your hope and your prayer for our camp friends, for our listeners in the summer ahead?
My hope and my prayer is that you will be open to experiences of God this summer, that you will have your eyes and your ears open, that you will not be too busy, that your nose will not be too close to the grindstone to look up and be amazed and to appreciate the amazing things that God is doing around you and through you. It's so easy for us to get caught up in the minutia and to sort of like do the see you in September idea to our friends, our family, and other things. But remember that what you're doing is holy work and you are a blessing to people around you. The camp that I was a program director at, we had a Christ walk, we had a Christ hike. And I remember when a new person was going to be portraying Jesus in the Christ hike, and the person who had done it the previous few weeks gave this person some advice, and they said, remember to worship when you're doing this. This is not, don't put on a performance. This is worship. Like, live in the experience of this. Live doxologically, right? You're in the presence of God and act that way and be that way while you're enacting this ministry. And then in this case, it was the Christ hike. And my hope and my prayer for you all is that you can understand that this is worshipful. This is a space, a holy space. So in some of our great theological traditions, and I know most specifically in the Presbyterian theology, we call it true worship. That's what happens when you go out from the walls of the church building and you go out into the world, your service in the world, your experiences, your acts of discipleship. That's true worship. And so worship this summer. Dwell in the presence of God and invite others to dwell there with you.
Amen. Here we are, the end of season 4, my friend. Here's what's up for Sacred Playgrounds. So, announcement number 1. While this is our last episode of this season, we would love to share that there will be a season 5 of the Sacred Playgrounds podcast. You heard it here first, and backed by popular demand. So we'll start again in September. We'll let you know the drop date there. In the meantime, you are working hard at camp. See you in September. In the meantime, we are going to come to hang out with some of you at staff training live in a handful of cases. We've got a big summer too of some project work to do, whether it's finishing some reports and things like that. And then we will be back in the fall with another season of this, and we get to come see a bunch of you, right? So like, we got a couple big ones are coming to the Christian Camper and Conference Association annual gathering. We will be at there in December, early December, right?
That sounds right, unless it's the end of November this year. But yeah, we'll be at 3CA.
We'll be at 3CA, and then we're also joining the Outdoor Ministries Connection Great Gathering this fall as well.
Yeah, in November.
I've been helping out with some of the planning and things, and we'll be there. So
yeah, if you haven't signed up for that one, that's going to be...
Sign up.
That one only happens every 5 or 6 years, and so this is a big deal. That's one that you want to make sure you come to.
Yep.
So I hope to see you there for sure.
That's the plan. Blessings on your summer. Take that blessing Jake gave you and dive in. We're grateful for you, listeners. Thanks for listening to the Sacred Playgrounds podcast. Thanks for listening to the Sacred Playgrounds podcast. Find us on Facebook at facebook.com/sacredplaygrounds or at Sacred Playgrounds on Instagram. Be sure to hit the follow or subscribe button wherever you're getting this podcast. And if you like this content and it's helpful, you can support the podcast by clicking that support button. Our theme music was written and performed by Taylor Wilson. You can find all his original songs wherever you get your music. Learn more about what we're up to and connect with the team at sacredplaygrounds.com.